Good morning. Thank you for joining us on our Mexico Retail Market webinar. My name is Tali Carrasco-Beniani, and I am a Marketing Outreach and Recruitment Coordinator at WUSATA. Throughout today's webinar, you may have some questions, so please feel free to type them into the chat box so that our presenter can answer them at the end of our session. Before we dive in to learning more about the market of Mexico, I would like to briefly provide a little bit of background about WUSATA. WUSATA stands for the Western United States Agricultural Trade Association, and our goal is to make the world your customer. We are a provider of resources that include a suite of readily accessible programs and activities, and we support companies at all stages of exporting and have strong ties with organizations here in the U.S. and outside. Our organization is a nonprofit, and we have been dedicated to exporting for over 30 years. We are your taxpayer dollars at work, and we are also advocates for the exporting community. We will provide export education, moral support, introductions, and financial assistance to help you gain your voice and establish a presence in the international marketplace. As a nonprofit organization, our members are the 13 Western State Departments of Agriculture, and we refer to them as our member states. The companies who are a part of our programs, we refer to them as our participants. The funding that we work with is primarily from the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service Market Access Program. This program supports overseas marketing and promotional activities for U.S. companies. Even though we're not a government agency, we are closely linked with the USDA and the Foreign Agricultural Service. The participants that we work with in our programs all meet these same requirements. They are small to medium-sized agribusinesses that are headquartered in the Western U.S., and their products are at least 50% U.S. agricultural origin by weight. This does exclude added water and packaging. You can see that we are working with a wide variety of product categories. So not only seafood, consumer-ready foods, and produce, we also work with value-added wood products, even nutritional supplements, and pet food. We have a host of programs to assist your company. Our branded program provides 50% reimbursement for eligible marketing expenses. Some of these promotions include international trade show exhibition, travel, in-store demonstrations, label and packaging modifications to meet a country's label regulations, and more. Your company can still apply for 2015 funding, and you can actually begin the 2016 application this August. Next, our generic program provides opportunities for you to connect directly with foreign buyers through international trade activities. These events include international trade show packages where you can exhibit with us in a WUSATA pavilion, attend buying missions here in the U.S. and abroad, access trade leads, and more. These are led by our member states and are a fantastic way to meet pre-qualified buyers. And lastly, we have export education for your company. Through market research, workshops, and webinars like today, we can help your company learn more about how to export and the opportunities that await you. If you are interested in learning more about our programs, we'd like to encourage you to schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Using GoToWebinar, we'll walk you through the ins and outs of our reimbursement program and train staff on how to apply and submit for reimbursement. We will even walk you through how to maximize your efforts by utilizing all of our programs together. So with that, I would like to change the presenter over to Marco Albarrán-Arozarena. And while we're switching screens, I'll go ahead and give a little bit more background about Marco. He has worked with WUSATA since 2009 as our in-country contractor and brings a host of experience. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Imalex, a marketing consulting firm for food and beverages in Latin America with operations in 8 Latin American countries. Marco brings over 17 years of management experience in supply chain, international business development, and food and beverage marketing. Marco, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Tally. Just to check, yes, you can hear me all right. Thank you very much for this time. We will take the next 30 minutes to talk about the Mexican market, and especially about the changes that we've had in recent months. As Tally was mentioned, we're a food and beverage marketing firm. We develop marketing strategies for Latin America, and we've been working with many of you in recent years, seeing how you grow and how you expand your exporting footprint. We do market intelligence services, trade missions, going to the U.S. and bringing people from the United States to meet target markets. We manage trade marketing and consumer programs, and also we create communications strategy and implement them in the countries that we work on. As I mentioned, today we will talk about changes that have happened in the recent months, but in 2015. Many of you are familiar with this market. You know it's a mature market. It's a hard-to-access market because of its proximity to the U.S. and because we are very close as countries and we share many business and cultural references. We will talk about the changes that have happened in the past months, basically acquisitions, changes, and new trends, and we will finish with a Q&A session. So as you can see, it's a very straightforward presentation. But before we start on retail, I just want to give a brief overview of Mexico. We're about 5 times the size of California, 1/4 total U.S. Our surface, our GDP is 1.3 billion, 1/4 of what you have in the U.S. Our gross domestic product per person is $11,000. Inflation and unemployment are very stable below, they're one-digit indicators, and that's very good because that gives us a stability and also the growth and all the changes that have happened in recent years, infrastructure, finance, and public policy are showing results. Obviously, there are some challenges, but we'll focus on the good and on the business opportunity. Energy and communication reforms are ongoing. Actually, the education reform is happening as well. This is a major breakthrough for Mexican government because the educational system was not touched in around 100 years. And now all the public schools teachers are taking proficiency evaluations, and that occurred over the weekend. That's a new thing, and that's a big change because the government is betting on education, energy reforms, and communications updates so we can grow. There was a recent study that mentions that Mexico will be one of the 10 top economies in the world by 2050. We just had midterm elections, and they obviously brought a lot of noise, political noise, and also many bad news or many news related to that prior the elections. Why? Because all the House of Representatives is being, there are elections to replace them. We don't have re-elections in Mexico. So obviously there were attacks on the government policies on the left, on the right. But now that elections just finished, everything is back to normal. So all the additional noise is down, and we're back to business as usual. There were not many changes. There were some positions won by the left. The PRI, who is the ruling party, remained pretty much the same, and we expect that all the reforms will continue and will not be revoked by this new House coming in December. On economy news, we were affected by global oil prices, which have the public budget adjusted, and we have a rather conservative policy for 2016, which is good. And also we were affected, and that's relative. We had initial exchange rate increase since December from 13 pesos to 15.50. That obviously affects imports from other countries, but also it detonates exports and also the growth of the economy and the manufacturing system in Mexico. Here you can see the exchange rate for the past 90 days, and you can see that we have a similar trend to the other major economies in the region. Basically, they're affected by global events, mainly the Greece crisis and the recovery of their economy, which is affecting worldwide markets. The dollar is strong, which is those are good news, but obviously the exchange rate is being affected by that. We don't expect many changes. Fortunately, the economy and the imports have not been affected in a major way. Obviously, we have buyers reducing their volumes, but in general, consumption in Mexico continues the same, and actually discretionary expense is increasing. And we just got the news today that we've had the best month in 26 months on growth. So economy is advancing. The best indicator in the past 23 months. Sorry, I'm reading that. Also, we have good news, and we're going back to our levels pre-global crisis of 2008. In 2014 was the most visited country in Latin America, and that's good because we have, tourism is the third largest economic indicator or driver in Mexico. So we're back to the tourism levels that we had before the global crisis and the swine flu and all the other news that we had. Resort areas are full, cities are full, and we see increase and improvement in hotels and restaurants and institutions. Also, we see an increased presence of global economies, mainly on the automotive industry. Huge industrial parks are being created, developed, and nurtured. We just received news that Audi is bringing a plant and a manufacturing plant, and that's normal. We see investment from Nestle, from Kraft, from the automotive industry, as I mentioned. So it's good. We are attracting foreign investment. And finally, our consumers and trade keep evolving. We're seeing new categories. We're seeing new products. Obviously, a Mexican is a rational consumer. They will think the value before actually shopping or buying anything, but they're buying more discretionary items, and we see more of those products even in convenience stores. United States is our main exporting partner. We send 70% of our exports. As I said, automobile cars. We're the largest refrigerator and screen manufacturer in the world. We're the fifth largest car manufacturer, and also we have consumer goods, produce, clothing items, many other items. We're not relying only on the primary exports, but also on primary, secondary, and also services. So we send, total trade is $350 billion per year, and we're also bringing half of imported products come from the U.S. Why? Because you're next to us. You're our main trade partner. We have a free trade agreement that, as a concept, will save 20% because of the free trade agreement, which is 20% is a regular tariff, international tariff between countries, and we have that agreement. So that helps a lot, and that continues to grow. Now, in general, obviously we're seeing changes and challenges, but economy is looking good. People are calm or happy. Again, there are some issues in specific areas of the country, but we're 120-something million people in Mexico, and 99.9% of us just want to have you make a living, and we're good people, so it's a very good place to make work, to make business with. So, how's retail in Mexico? And we'll talk about the top four, the big four. Obviously, they're led by Walmart. We'll talk about Soriana and Comercial Mexicana, who just merged. Now there are many changes, and I've received comments that now buyers just disappeared. Yes, because they're changing in structure. And also Chedraui, who is number three, and they're obviously trying to keep up with the other big ones. So we'll talk in general about these guys. And also the rest. In Mexico, we have a more centralized retail channel than in the U.S. We have 35 chains. Most of them are national, some are regional, some are local. But in total, we have 5,200 stores in total, accounting all those little brands that you see on the top of the slide. Some of you may be doing business with the regional chains, especially Esmart, Calimax, El Super, HEB, because they're easier to access. And that's how we recommend you to start, with the regional and the smaller ones, before trying to tackle Walmart or Soriana, which will demand obviously lots of product. That's a huge opportunity, but also their supply chain costs are very high. So if you want to consider coming into Mexico, start small, step-by-step approach, and then continue with the rest. In general, and we've seen this slide many times, I promise this will be the last time you see it, but we have national retailers and regional retailers. National retailers will have all 5 formats because they will cover more ground, they'll have better distribution, but with these different formats, they can also access different types of consumers. So they will range from price clubs through convenience stores, going through hypermarkets, warehouses, supermarkets, etc. So they have all formats. The regional chains are going to the smaller formats, warehouse, supermarkets, and convenience stores. Why? Again, because they want to increase their consumption base. They want to reach more clients, and some of them will not go to the price clubs or will not go to the warehouses. So they want to have an option for everyone. You can see here their characteristics on the second block, and then the chains and the names that you may be familiar with. What happens is that some of them, in example of Walmart, will have different formats managed by the same company. Here, I just want to clarify that OXXO is not owned by Walmart. They have their Bodega Aurrera Express, but obviously the picture is not the right one. But it illustrates a point where they have different formats owned by the same company and sometimes managed by the same buyer. Now, speaking of Walmart, they're the largest retailer in the world, and Mexico is a very important portion of that. They have a very good financial position. As we know, retail is a financial business, not so a trade business. They pay credit, they charge cash. They have a lot of growth in low-income consumers formats. The integration with Central America, Mexico and Central America occurred last year, and they have very aggressive trade terms. With Walmart, you can expect to be paid at 45 days with a 16% discount. So just keep that in mind when you go and contact them. Incorporate those costs in your cost structure. Otherwise, a good opportunity may turn into a bad business. So just summing up, make sure you consider the trade terms, 45 days of payment, and around 16% discount upfront because of distribution, logistics, and merchandising expenses. However, Mexico is very, very important. You can see that in the U.S. you have 4,625 stores. In Mexico alone, you have half of that. So that's a big, share, considering that Mexican economy is 1/4 of the U.S. So here you can see that Walmart is betting on Mexico because they have half of their stores, half of the stores they have in the U.S. Counted in Mexico. They have Central America as well, Guatemala, Salvador, Costa Rica. They have operations in Chile as well. So if you're selling to Walmart, you can access these markets in Latin America specifically. With Walmart, they don't seem to be making many changes, just working on efficiency, working on promotions. They advertise themselves as everyday low prices. Not anymore. They have promotions. They have high and lows as other retailers, but they're very solid. So they're just waiting, obviously strengthening their leadership, but they're also just seeing how things are happening with the rest. They just published the results for the first quarter, and they grew above the average. So they're doing very well right now. So it's a very good position for Walmart right now. Number 2 is Soriana. Soriana has 674 stores, and they have different formats. They have a Hyper, Super, Express, and Mercado. They've been struggling with that because it seems to be the same store. But Hyper, obviously, it's a hypermarket. Super is a smaller supermarket. Express would be a convenience store, and Mercado is a very low income consumer format. The thing is that in Mexico, and the trade, and they know it, is that it's not well advertised or recognized. So they're changing that, trying to get more consumers to the right store. And also they have City Club, which is their club format. You can see that they're very well spread out throughout the country. You can see, North, Monterrey, Northeast. Obviously in Monterrey area, they will have the largest portion because they're based there. But they also have very good footprint in the rest of the country. They just finished paying the acquisition of Gigante, which was a retailer. They bought it about 8 years ago. Now that they paid up, well, they went shopping again. They are modernizing their trade and structure. They just implemented a transactional system called SAP. It took them 6 years to implement that. And right now they have very low margin in their operations. The big news with them is that, yes, they were inefficient. They were hard to get. But now they just acquired Comercial Mexicana, so they shook things up. If you don't find the right buyer in Soriana, give us a call. We'll try to track them. Because last week, Soriana made all the layoff and all the restructuring with their personnel. So from the first communications that we've had, some buyers have left the organization, and some that came from Comercial Mexicana will incorporate to Soriana's structure. So if you're selling to Soriana or Comercial Mexicana, just keep calling them and try to get a hold of them, or at least know if they're moving, they're staying, or who's their replacement, because that's going to happen for the next month or so. Talking about Comercial Mexicana, well, the acquisition was announced in January. It just occurred. Actually, it's happening right now. And Soriana and Comercial Mexicana want to take things slowly. 8 years ago, when Gigante was acquired by Soriana, they just made a change in less than 2 months, and they couldn't recover for the next 3 years. So they're taking a step-by-step approach. Comercial Mexicana will remain in the market at least for the next year. We don't know yet if those stores will be incorporated into the Soriana brand. That's an option, but I don't think they should know, but the strategy is not public yet. Soriana acquired 160 stores, and the operation was 2.6 billion. So that will leave them with around 800 and so stores. They're not close to Walmart, but they will give them a larger size and obviously a better negotiation tool. We expect these changes again this year and the next, but we also expect that Soriana's organization will move real quickly on efficiency and trying to modernize their systems. They took all the formats, and Comercial Mexicana, the owner, kept City Market, which is the high-end format in Mexico. They kept Fresco, also differentiated, and Sumesa, which is a smaller supermarket. They were not included in the transaction, but now there's a speculation because Comercial Mexicana just lost all the negotiation power. So there are analysts that consider that those formats will eventually be sold to another group, namely Chedraui. Chedraui is the biggest, the biggest option. So we need to be pending to what happens. So let's see how that moves and how that goes. Okay. So moving forward, there are other regional retailers, and you need to take those into account because they're also moving with the market. They're restructuring and they're getting new imports buyers or new category development buyers. We know that Casale is getting a new imported buyer, or at least marketing and new products buyer. His name is Carlos Angulo. We can provide his contact if necessary. Chedraui, well, they're getting new products and new imported products. They rely a lot on importers, but they're getting new options, so that's a good contact as well. Calimax, a bit behind in Tijuana. We don't see many changes, but Comercial Mexicana was their biggest competitor in Tijuana, so we expect them to move, and all the rest. El Super also making some movement. HEB has remained the same. Actually, we expected more from them. They have not increased dramatically their participation in Mexico, but you never know. Maybe they'll have changes and increase their number of stores here. So those are the ones that you want to take attention to, and also the local ones. Not as developed, obviously being local, give them less negotiation power, but still you can consider them eventually for items. Santa Fe is not buying directly. MC, Compras, Gutierrez, and the others, well, they have a basic buying department. So if you have a distributor who is selling to those, well, they can be a good option to access. If you see the chart, regional and local chains represent only 24% of total stores. So these big guys, actually, Walmart will have around 50%, and Soriana will have around 25%. So again, a very, very centralized market. So you need to get here. Obviously, it's, as I said, it's a mature market, and you need to develop the relationship which others have developed in the past. I'll go quicker. Other news: Grupo Gigante acquired some restaurants. On food service, VIPS, which is a large cafeteria chain, was acquired by Alsea, a large restaurant operator group. Nutriza acquired Helados Nestle, and also in food service news, Cisco acquired a Mexican company called Pacific Star. So they expect to expand their operations dramatically in the next 3 years. Actually, I was with the owner yesterday, and they have very aggressive plans for food service in Mexico. So that's a very good. If you're selling to Cisco in the U.S., just get closer to them because they want to access Mexico and in the categories that they have in the U.S. Obviously, there are some hurdles that you will have when you access this market. The first one, lack of credit references. Our advice: ask for pay in advance. Get references from local FAS posts, from agricultural trade offices, or give us a call. We can tell you, or we can look into the companies that that are prospects for you. The other thing is relationship. There is limited personal contact and cultural barriers. The most important is that there's a high lack of understanding of Mexican trade. So just be careful with this. Don't look like a tourist, look like a business person. Investigate the market. If you are not fluent in Spanish, quick advice, don't try. It will give you more power or more negotiation stance if you stick to English instead of just throwing one or two words, because at some point that effort can be perceived as aggressive from your Mexican counterpart. Legal protection, well, commerce codes are not corresponding. International transactions are not covered in both countries, but you can sign a contract abiding to U.S. laws, and also define arbitrage, or who will be your, who can help you to rule any dispute, or define, the costs and the terms before coming to Mexico. Again, we can help you. We can guide you in the right direction. That's part of our duties as WUSATA in-country representatives. We also have trade missions coming to Mexico and Monterrey in October. We have trade missions going to the states. Actually, we're visiting California, Washington, Idaho, and Colorado for produce, and we're going to New Mexico and Colorado for specialty retail items, grains, flours, and such. So again, this is a market that cannot be taken lightly. And one of the things that I just realized, well, at least was more clear when talking to a Chinese colleague, is that, China is easier. Yes, it is easier because you have companies that will take all this process, or they will buy from you, and they're a third party. There's a big difference with Mexico because being so close, people are looking for efficiency. So you will not have that number of trading companies, or you may not be willing to work with one of those. You may want to sell directly to your final client or your customer. So that's a huge difference between Mexico and other emerging markets. We included Incoterms because we've seen that these are not well understood. It's usual and common that the U.S. exporter will think on deliver at their facility, X works, but most of the Mexican importers will think on delivered at terminal, DAT, delivered at Laredo, Texas. So if you see the difference between this and this, the responsibility and the cost, that can be a huge difference between a good deal and a not so good deal. So just consider your cost structure. We talked about credit terms. Also consider freight, so you can have a successful business. I don't mean to scare you. I just want you to be prepared because, again, many people have tried this in the past. But if you're informed, your success rate can increase dramatically without, the trial and error approach. Where will you deliver? It's easy. San Diego, Nogales for produce, or Laredo, Texas, right here. And most of the times you will deliver in Mexico City, Monterrey, or Guadalajara. So that's very easy. You have different entry points. We consider that you get quotes from U.S. shipping companies and consider from samples to pallets. So you can be prepared on the cost structure because your buyers will ask for that. There are many costs that are included in imports operations, and that add to your final retail cost. We have met many companies saying, my product is $2 in retail. Well, that cost can be twice or 4 times in Mexico due to all these incremental duties, maneuvers, fees, and taxes. So just consider that, to understand if your product will be competitive or if there's any marketing effort that you need to do to access this market. As I mentioned, the product will mainly move to Mexico City. This is very clear. Regular freight costs are the ones stated there, from 1,000 to 3,000 depending on the distance. And, that's in general the information that we have in a nutshell. We don't have much time, but what opportunities do we see for U.S. exporters? We see organic, gluten-free, added value products, healthy products, gourmet retail products. We need to, see which ones, because there are categories that are becoming saturated. We see many sauces and liquids, but there are some items that can be interesting in gourmet, snacks, desserts, those kind of things. Dressings can be interesting. Specialty produce, moving forward from the regular ones, specialty ones can be, and seasonal items are also interesting. Food service items and packs. I mentioned before, we're talking about retail, but there's also opportunity there. And ingredients, fruit ingredients, that's something that we're exploring and something that we're trying. Also, specialty flours, although we have the largest baker in the world, there are some specialty flours that can be, that have opportunity here, especially because they're trying to move out from the traditional breads and, bread and pastries. So those are the ones that we see. We talk with buyers, and they give us these three main comments. So be prepared for this. Be patient. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, from 6 months to a year. Be prepared to have a small order at first because they need to try product before just going with a full container. So you may ship 1 or 2 cases for sampling, 1 pallet for first purchase order, and then a reorder. So if you're willing to go all the way, then you can have a profitable and long-term business here. And finally, exchange rate has increased dramatically. They're not buying big volumes, but overall consumption is not affected. If they see an opportunity with your product, they will go for it. So again, be prepared and make sure that you have information. We're here to help. So that's what I have as a presentation. I think we have time for a Q&A session.
Great. Yes, we do. Thank you, Marco, for that in-depth overview about the retail market for Mexico. So we do have some questions from our participants. And Marco, I will go ahead and ask you a question from one of them, and then if you don't mind answering that. And looks like we have time to do all of them. So for the first question, can you please tell us more about Costco in Mexico?
Yes. Costco was a joint venture with Costco and the buyers of Comercial Mexicana that started in the 90s, but it was acquired by the corporation about 4 or 5 years ago. So Costco will be just the same as in the U.S. And imported products are negotiated and defined in the San Diego office. We have a name of Jim Davis. He seems to be the international procurement buyer, and he's the one defining what products come into Mexico from the U.S. Obviously, there are some domestic products that are negotiated directly, but if you want to sell to Costco Mexico, you need to talk to the office in San Diego. Mm-hmm.
Great. So the second question that we have, what are the names of retailers in North Mexico that are good to start with?
Calimax, El Super. You can talk to HEB if you're a supplier in the U.S., so that can be a good option. Let me go back real quick because I have one name that I forgot. Sorry, bear with me. Cafe and Esmart. So if you see on this slide that says what about regional retailers, the top 4 are good options. I would add Al Super and HEB. San Francisco Asís is a good one, but it's in the southeast of Mexico, so their supply chain costs can be difficult, but those ones can be interesting for you.
Great. Our next question, is there a product registration prior to import? If so, what are the requirements and how long to process?
Well, the imports process is the responsibility of the importer, so you will need general documents, certificate, pre-sale certificate, NAFTA, certificate of origin, sorry about that, certificate of origin, invoice analysis if they're needed, lab analysis if they're needed. But you need to talk to your importer and their customs agent so you know the requirements in advance. One thing that we encourage and we strongly recommend is that you don't ship anything unless you have all those documents prepared in advance and they're cleared not by your client but by their customs agent. So you don't need a registration process of the product itself. It's more documentation that is needed for the imports process.
Good, thank you. Next, is there a list of buyers that distribute to these large retailers that we can have access to?
We will need, if they can contact us, obviously the contact database is big and they're specialized by category or industry. So if they can contact us directly, we can help them and point them in the right direction. It's not the same talking to a food importer than a beverage or alcoholic beverage importer. So yes, we can help you with contact so you can start the process. But also, it's not only having the name and the email. It's about developing the relationship. We encouraged you to participate on the outbound trade mission for Mexico and Monterrey that happens in October this year.
Great. And for those events that Marco has been mentioning, you can sign up for that on our website at WUSATA.org through your My WUSATA account. Our next question, does Mexico have any special label requirements?
Yes, and they just changed, and I will send you a summary of the new regulations where they are asking for information in the front label. Besides the prior requirements, which is name in Spanish in metric tons, in the back nutritional facts, country of origin, name of importer, and any other consumer warning. Usually these products, or the first stage is that at the first stage the importer will place a label in the back or on the side. But yes, there are other regulations that can be taken into account if you're developing a packaging specific for Mexico.
Good. And it looks like we have a comment. It says, we were told that they didn't need to be on the front of the bag.
That's what I mentioned, that they can be placed on the side. Regulations state that they have to be on the front, but there are some some ways to work around it. If you put it on the side and there's a slight piece of the label, then it counts as it front.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. What is the preferred communication method in regards to finding a distributor?
An email and then phone. Use the phone. U.S. culture is more driven by email. We like to use the phone. So yes, you can do an email first and then start talking to them. It's better to call them in the afternoon before, between 4 and 6, because they're out of meetings and they just got the order done. So yes, email first, phone later. Obviously, personal contact is much better, but obviously it's not feasible all the time.
Thank you. And we have 4 more questions left. Are wine buyers in Mexico able to provide assistance by recommending distributors?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Are wine buyers in Mexico able to provide assistance by recommending distributors?
They can, if you already talk to them, but yes, they can provide you references. Wine industry in particular is very close. You'll see 3 or 4 large distributors. Obviously, we have the big ones, Constellation, Diageo, etc., etc. But you have specialty wine importers, and they, the retailers can tell you who they're more comfortable working with.
Mm-hmm. Great. How are organic and gluten-free products doing in Mexico's retail market?
They're doing good, even better than I thought. And I personally considered that category wouldn't have a future in Mexico about 7 years ago, and I eat my words now. There's a full aisle of organic products. There are big brands, obviously, but they're on the added value. That's on consumer packaged products. Organics, produce organic, it's still a niche market. It's not as big as on the other categories.
That's great to hear. Thank you. What regions of Mexico has the most growth in per capita income or disposable income?
It's called the Mexican Plateau, which is Bajío in Spanish, but it's a corridor from Querétaro all the way to Guadalajara. That's where most of the industry is moving towards, and they have the highest per capita index in the country. They have the largest growing cities. Querétaro is receiving about 30 families per day, and also Guanajuato, León, Silao, all that region is growing on the industrial side and also on the agribusiness side. They're having lots of processors and growers are in that region. However, the buyers for those regions are located in Mexico City and a few in Guadalajara.
All right, and we have our last question. What stores are higher end stores?
City Market, by far. That's the, you can think of a Whole Foods on steroids. They have 5 stores in the country. I mean, that store is amazing. So yes, that would be City Market, followed by some Sorianas on the large cities, Soriana Super, and some Superamas as well. But I mentioned again that store City Market, they don't have competition right now. They're highest end formats that I've seen, even compared to U.S. standards.
Thank you. We appreciate your explanations and answers to all these questions, Marco. And thank you, everyone, for your time putting these questions in the chat box for us to answer for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Marco at this email address below, or you can contact WUSATA with any questions as well. We will be sending out this presentation for you and uploading it on our website so that you can access it later. These questions, we will also type them up with their answers so that you can take a look at them at a later time as well. So again, thank you so much for your time as we went over the retail market for Mexico. We hope that you enjoyed listening to Marco and learned a little bit more, and hopefully get you excited about exporting your product into Mexico too. Marco, do you have any other thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, thank you very much for your time, and look forward to seeing you here in Mexico soon. Please contact me if you have any additional questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Marco, again. And again, contact us if you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.